Welcome to Motivated to Lead podcast, helping you become a better leader. I'm your host, Mark Klingsheim. Hi, everyone. Mark Klingsheim with SEMA Partners. Glad you could join us again this week for our podcast. Each week, we interview a leader and designed to help you become a better leader. This week, we're going to be talking with John Deedrick. John is the co-founder and managing director at Fourth Element Capital, and he began his VC career at Mayo Clinic in their Mayo Medical Ventures group, and he also went on to be a part of Accuitive Medical Ventures and has held a number of board positions over the years, and he's got some great insights he's going to share with us this week. It's great to have John Deedrick join us. And John, we've known each other for a number of years. I'm not sure how many at this point, but I guess first off, can you give us a little bit of your background and an overview of your career?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. And I'm honored to be on your podcast. My career is pretty simple. I've been a business person, a business generalist my whole career. And through that process, I've got to have some pretty fantastic jobs. And so, I started out as an accountant, and then I made my way quickly into the defense industry. And I really held every job imaginable inside of a business operation. So from finance to contract management to marketing and sales, all the way to program management. And then I even got some international experience. And about that time, my family was growing, and I really wanted to spend more quality time with my family. So I transitioned, if you will, from the defense business to healthcare. And so I moved from the Twin Cities to Rochester, joined Mayo Clinic, and helped them start a corporate venture capital program. And that was a really unique experience and a wonderful opportunity, as it really fit into who I was. So many people don't like change. I love change. And so getting a new business plan every day was quite valuable to me as a person. So I learned venture capital at Mayo. We put together a portfolio of 21 companies during my career there. And then at that point in time, I felt like I was good at it. And so there was only one way to find out. And that was to finally become the entrepreneur that everybody else was that I had invested in. Started my own venture capital business and successfully raised 2 funds with some partners down in Atlanta. So I did that through 12, went back to the defense industry for a couple of years, did a special project that was just an unbelievably fun time. I traveled to the Middle East and all around the world in helping them start a new global business, and then popped right back to healthcare. And I'm currently starting companies, started 2 in the last 2 years, and have a venture fund where we have a lead investor. So we expect to be fully funded in that fund within the next, let's say, 90 to 120 days.
Great. Well, super. Well, John, tell us a little bit, if anybody had the opportunity, if you could go back to talk to a 22-year-old self, what advice would you give him, knowing what you know now? What advice would you give John at 22?
So it's a great question, and it's a very personal question. Given who I am and how I was made, if you will, by God, I don't think I would go back and give any advice. And what I mean by that is I'm an experience-based person. I like challenge. I like new opportunity. And I don't like to career plan. So from that, I did exactly what I was made to do. And so, if I was going to give myself advice, it would not be on career path. It wouldn't be on sort of type of thing I should do, because prescription would not work for John Deedrick. What I would do is say, you really got to find something to hang on to. You got to have boundaries. You have to have almost a personal mission statement that you always fulfill. And once you stay within those two curbs, then it's okay to play the game of life. So, it's a really strange answer, because as I pondered it, I came up with a whole lot of cool things that I could say. But if I'm true to who I am as a person, and if I was to meet somebody like me, I would say go and do. Stay within the guidelines of your integrity. Stay within the guidelines of your faith and who you are as a person, and just go experience life. So there you go.
All right. So if you were to, think back on some of the people that have had a major impact on your life, mentors that have helped shape kind of who you are, who are some of those people, and how important is it to have mentors in your life?
Yeah, that's a sweet spot for me. I don't know if you know this, Mark, but I just joined the board of a ministry called Resolute. And Resolute is all about men's accountability and mentorship. And so I kind of split that question up into 3 different areas. So first of all, I've always admired and looked for mentors in my faith walk. So having people who keep me within those guardrails as a person, and true to who I am and also to my faith was sort of number 1. Number 2, from a personal perspective, I also had accountability partners and mentors for my marriage and family, which is one of the reasons why I changed careers and went to Rochester, was to stay true to my commitments in marriage and family. And then third, from a business perspective, it's amazing to me as to how sort of you're built as a person. And so I will make a quick sports analogy. You have the professional golfer who's kind of out there on his own, and even with a caddy and such, he is the performer. Then you got a basketball team, and there's 5 guys who are performing at the same time. I'm more comfortable in the 5 guys scenario than in the 1 individual. So as a person who's based on a team approach, I always enjoyed having mentors who were close to me, some part of my team, and some leading my team to help me become better. And I didn't really do the thing where, I'm going to get a VP who will mentor me through this company. To me, it was always about that close-knit nature of team and within my organization directly. So I think it's a critically important part of your business life and your personal life.
Right. So you've seen a lot of startups, and you've probably seen a number of new CEOs, whether they're founders or others that have moved into that position. What mistakes have you seen, and what should a new leader look for as far as to avoid?
Well, I've seen every one of them. So after 55 investments, I've probably seen every mistake twice, maybe 3 times. And so I'm not even sure how you put a label on a mistake, because every day I make my own set of errors, if you will. The question is, how important are the errors? And so the most interesting mistakes are almost always people related. Who do you hire? And then how long do you take a bad hire and stick with it? Because we love people, right? And so how long do you stick with something that you've invested a lot of time and energy when really it's bad for both the company and for that individual? So that's a mistake. And almost never have I heard somebody say, man, I wish we would have, let that person go later. It's always, I wish we would have parted ways earlier. And I'm not big into you're fired. I'm big into this is not a great situation for either one of us. You should move on and we should find somebody else, right? Treating people with that dignity. So I think the people side is critically important. And then in my business, the 4 elements are market, management, model, and money. It's easy to self-correct within the business model. What you can't correct is if you pick or try to penetrate the wrong market. If you have a very specific product or a very specific idea to a very specific product. It's really hard to self-correct. And to try to create a market that doesn't already exist is critically hard. That's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's good. So you were talking about the importance of making great decisions. What are some other things that you would say to a new leader that's putting together maybe their first executive team? What advice would you give around that?
Yeah, another good question. I'm from a philosophy perspective, take your strengths and really run with them and manage your weaknesses. And so I don't want a bunch of people that have the same strengths as me, but I do want some because we'll run very well together. But you need the people to help you with your weaknesses also. And so it's really important that as you hire, you have, I think, two things. Sometimes a voice of dissension or conflict, which will help make you better through sort of the cynical or critical view of what you're doing, sort of keeping you honest. I actually think that's an important part. And so I really like that. And then the second one is I want the person who's thinking outside the box and coloring outside the box. I'd rather pull somebody back than push somebody out. So as you build your team, that core of having a number of people that really make you stronger, and then the ones that help your weaknesses, I think are the second set of hires.
So when are there any particular interview questions? I know you've been on a number of boards where you've probably been hiring key people.
Right.
Anything that you like to ask candidates?
I hate asking questions. I don't like interviews. I really love discussions.
Sure.
So generally at the beginning, I like to tell people, you know why you're here. I know why you're here. Don't try to impress me with sort of your knowledge and ability. Tell me what you think I have to know to make a really great decision. And so I know there's some things I need to find out. I'd rather defer those to the end because most of them come up as they tell you what you need to know. And sometimes it throws people off balance and you have to go ask some questions to kind of get the blood running, if you will. But for the most part, I think that makes people very comfortable that I don't want you to fit in this box. I want you to tell me who you are. Why are you even here? What is it about this that you want to impress on me? Because I need somebody who's going to love what they do. I don't want somebody who's just sort of testing around the edges. So anyway, I like to take the approach of not tricking them with cute questions, although I've done that a few times and almost always embarrass myself. I really like to get to know the person. And what do you want to tell me? What is it you think that's important in this limited time?
Mm-hmm. Well, you've been involved in as a VC and raising funds, as well as I'm sure hearing a lot of pitches over the years. A new CEO that maybe is in that position where they're going to need to speak with private equity or venture capital. What advice would you give that person as they're kind of approaching the VCs or the private equity people?
That's a great question. And, other than the basic, be who you are, I would say there's two words of advice I have for people. Because when you're like me and you've seen probably now 15 or 20,000 business plans and heard thousands of presentations, you become a little cynical. Because you're always trying to figure out, why am I going to say no today? Mm-hmm. Right? And that's not always the most pleasant position to be in. So what I want them to do is be well balanced. I want you to show me as a leader why this company can be successful. I'll call it from a risk management perspective, right? Don't paint the sky the wrong color green, and don't sort of bury me in the ground, but tell me in a balanced approach why this is a great business opportunity. And then the best presentations ever are people that follow what I'll call some very simple advice from a buddy of mine. His name's Rudy Mazaki. He wrote a book called Storytelling. And if you read the whole book, that's fine, but I'm going to give you the crib notes right now. And that is embellishment versus exaggeration. So embellishment is telling a story with what could be, kind of casting a vision for a company, but keeping it within a parameter of reality. Exaggeration is telling people that they will have the world and the pot of gold and capture the leprechaun, which we know is not going to happen. And if it does, it's in, less than 1/10 of the businesses. So embellish appropriately. Tell a story that captures a person, both intellectually and emotionally, but make sure it's a balanced approach to your business. So that would be my advice.
Okay, good. Well, you mentioned a book, storytelling. Any other books that are on your bookshelf that you maybe go back to on a regular basis, or you would recommend to any new leader?
So I love reading, and I go back to things very seldom. I get a feel for books, and then I sort of fall in love with the leadership style of the person. So number one, I can't not say the Bible. I mean, I read the Bible almost every day, and it's been sort of the stake in the ground for me. That's what keeps me grounded. There was a book which is kind of unique. You may or may not recall, but I had a nonprofit that I run called Great Deeds. It's a ministry of helping other people, doing good for others to shine the light of Christ. And there was a book I read. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I think it was Hendrickson, and it was "You Were Born for This." And when I read that book, I had a moment, right? You were born for this. And he doesn't say exactly what you're born for, but he sort of built a picture of each of us needs to check our whole card as to what is our purpose here on this earth. And that resonated with me more than I can tell you. And actually, it was later in life in my 40s. And so it actually created a bit of a journey of self-discovery for me. And then I went through, a lot of leadership training, including MCORE and core motivation, John Maxwell, DISC training. So what I would tell you, other than that, the three books or the three leaders that I keep going back to are John Maxwell, Tony Dungy, and John Wooden. Those are my three favorites. Great. And you can see some sports analogies there and that kind of stuff. But I just love those guys.
Good. And I know you've been around technology in the med tech space. Is there any technology that you use on a regular basis that keeps you more productive? And I know we were talking about IT problems earlier, and sometimes IT or technology can be a double-edged sword, but yeah. Anything that you would recommend?
Well, I recommend having a personal IT guy if you can. Right. Because, with my Mac and my iPad, my iPhone, and problems with this, and we even experienced that with a meeting invitation, I honestly, I'm bad at technology. So here's what I would tell you. Do the best you can, get somebody who can help you out with technology. But for me, my technology dreams and aspirations go into the medical technologies, the healthcare technologies we develop. Mm-hmm. And the finest moments in my life are I'm walking out of a restaurant, somebody else is walking in, and I say to my colleagues or the people I'm dining with, "Did you see that?" And they go, What? That man he's got these oxygen tubes in his nose and this satchel over his shoulder and this very small pack. It's an oxygen concentrator. That's one of my companies. Previously, the guy had to drag around tubes of oxygen, and he could only do it for 2 hours. Now he can be out all day. He can travel by airline. He can do all of these things. So making a person with COPD ambulatory and seeing that's my technology, sort of thumbs up. When I see those kinds of things, or when I see people living longer or healthier and more quality life. So this other stuff, I'm not very good at it.
So outside of work, it's important to have some other things in your life. What other things do you enjoy doing?
Oh my gosh, that's easy. So family, I have 2 grandsons, 2 sons, and that's number one. experiences. I love concerts. I love music more than I can tell you. I probably do more concerts than most people because I love that. It really opens my soul, and music speaks to me in various different ways. And I love contemporary and Christian music, so it'll be that. I love experiences, so traveling places to watch a golf tournament, or just go with a friend someplace they haven't been. We're taking our pastor and his wife someplace they've never been this fall. So I love that. And then finally, I love golf. I don't know why. I'm not good enough at it, but I love it.
Great. Any parting advice you'd give an executive?
Yeah, absolutely. Be true to yourself. So part of my view at Chip Solutions, which is my company around leadership, is you have to understand the core of who you are. And I use MCORE and core motivations to help people find out, how was I made? What is my purpose? What's your core? And then the second part of CHIP is humanity, and that is, how do you work with people around you? How do you serve and interact with other people? Finally, and this is where you get into interviews and stuff, the I is for the intellect, or this is your work experience and your academic experience and all that. I consider that to be third important. Maybe it's because I have a lower pedigree than most people out there in the real world, but I don't consider that the most important part of a person. I consider it a part of the person. And then the final one of CHIP is P, in personality. And that's where I love DISC assessments. And the frank reality is I consider that the candy coating. So you got all these things inside of you. You got all your strengths and weaknesses. You got how you deal with the world around you. And then you have your own little personality. And that's what makes a person. So be who you are and enjoy that. Don't try to pretend for other people.
Right. Well, thanks, John. Appreciate your time and insights. As always, it's always fun to connect, and wish you success in your ventures.
It's great, Mark. Thank you for inviting me. I'm humbled and honored, and hopefully my preaching wasn't too much.
Thank you for listening to the Motivated to Lead podcast. Please subscribe on iTunes. You can also see a video version of this interview at motivatedtolead.com. This podcast is brought to you by SEMA Partners, helping you find your next great leader.